Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen someone stay completely calm in the middle of chaos? I'm talking about real storms. Heated arguments, betrayals, stress, even disrespect. And yet they remain centered. Not cold, not numb, but deeply composed, as if their peace is rooted somewhere no one else can reach. And maybe you've wondered, how do they do that? Because most people, maybe even you, maybe even me on a bad day, get triggered like clockwork. One text, one glance, one passive-aggressive comment, and boom, there goes our peace, hijacked by someone else's behavior. It's as if our emotions are on remote control, and the world is pressing the buttons. But what if I told you, it doesn't have to be that way? The ancient Stoics knew this secret. Epictetus, a man who was born into slavery and yet found mental freedom, once said, "It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Think about that for a moment. It's not the event that shakes you. It's the meaning you assign to it. The story your mind tells itself in that split second. Let's say someone ignores your message. Your mind might say, "They don't respect me. I'm not important." But is that true? Or is it just an old wound speaking? Here's the truth. Most of what triggers us today was programmed long ago. These emotional reactions aren't fresh. They're echoes. Scripts written by childhood experiences, social conditioning, or past relationships. And we've been running them for years, without questioning their validity. Someone rolls their eyes. Your mind says, "I'm being disrespected again." Someone speaks over you. Your mind says, "They don't value my voice." But is it possible that none of this is about them? And it's everything to do with the old code you're running. This is where real power begins, not in controlling others, not in dominating the room, but in taking back the remote control of your own nervous system, in learning how to pause before reacting, in choosing your response rather than being ruled by impulse. That's not weakness, that's mastery. You see, anyone can explode. That takes no effort. But to feel the fire and not let it consume you, that is the way of the warrior. The Stoics weren't emotionless robots. They felt deeply. But they trained their minds not to be ruled by passing storms. They understood that life is unpredictable and that true peace cannot depend on external events. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, had more pressure than most of us could imagine. And yet, he wrote in his private journal, what we now know as meditations, reminders to himself like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength is what we're talking about today. Because in this modern world of notifications, opinions, insults, and emotional noise, inner peace is a radical act of rebellion. It's saying, "You don't get to control my mind. Not anymore." Imagine this. You walk into a room. Someone criticizes you. You hear them, but you don't absorb it. You get a message that would have ruined your day a year ago. But today, you breathe, observe, and respond with wisdom. You choose your emotional state. You own your space. That's not apathy. That's power. The kind of power no one can take away, because it's not granted by others. It's built from within. And the best part, this isn't something reserved for monks or philosophers. It's something you can train. Right here. Right now. Through awareness. Through reflection. Through choice. So if you've ever felt tired of being yanked around by every trigger, if you're done feeling like a puppet in someone else's drama, then you're in the right place. Because what we're going to explore in this video, and in this journey together, is how to become psychologically untouchable. How to rewire the code, challenge the old scripts, and finally, return home to yourself. to that quiet place within you that doesn't flinch when the world shakes, to that place that doesn't beg for respect because it already stands in self-respect, to that deep-rooted calm that says, I will not give you control of my peace. So let's begin. Because your real strength isn't how loudly you speak, how tough you act, or how many people fear you. Your real strength is how calm you can remain in the storm. How rooted you stay when everything around you is chaos, and how bravely you choose peace again and again. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you've decided to become. Part 1. The hidden prison, reactivity. Let's talk about a prison you didn't even know you were living in. It's not made of bars or walls. You won't find guards or gates, but every day it dictates your thoughts, controls your reactions, and steals your peace. This prison is emotional reactivity. And most of us were born into it. From the time we were kids, we were trained, conditioned really, to link our emotions to the outside world. Think about it. You got praise, you felt proud, you were ignored. You felt invisible, you were yelled at, you felt small. Love was given when you behaved a certain way, and withheld when you didn't. Slowly, our emotional world became dependent on how others treated us. Like little thermostats, our moods adjusted to external validation, approval, attention, affection. And without realizing it, we handed over the remote. So now, as adults, we walk around carrying this invisible wiring. One unread message can send us spiraling. A change in someone's tone can ruin our day. A few words, sometimes even a look, can trigger a wave of emotion that we can't explain, but can't seem to stop either. Sound familiar? That's because we're not just reacting to the moment, we're reacting to an old script, a script that was written when we were too young to question it. And now, it plays out on loop. Let me break it down. There's a pattern to this madness. I call it the 5-step reactivity loop. Step 1. A trigger happens. Someone doesn't respond to your text. Your partner uses that tone again. A coworker questions your idea in front of others. Boom, the match is lit. Step 2. Your brain searches for meaning. The mind hates uncertainty. So instantly, it starts telling a story. Why didn't they respond? Are they mad at me? Do they even care? Step 3. The story comes from the past. But here's the catch. Your brain isn't logical in that moment. It pulls from old wounds. Maybe it says, people always leave me, or I'm never good enough. It doesn't check the facts. It plays the old tape. Step 4. You react emotionally. Now, the story feels real. So your body responds. Heart racing, anger rising, maybe withdrawal or anxiety. You act based on a script written long ago, but in doing so, you create new consequences based on something that may not even be true. Step 5. Regret, shame, and emotional spiraling. Afterward, you regret the overreaction. You feel embarrassed. You replay the moment, asking yourself why you lost control again. And guess what? That emotional shame becomes another wound, fuel for the next time. The loop is reinforced. And you wonder why you feel exhausted, why peace feels so far away. But here's the truth, and it's both liberating and uncomfortable. You're not reacting to the event. You're reacting to the unhealed version of yourself. That trigger. It wasn't the cause. It was the spotlight, revealing where the work still needs to be done. This is why someone else can hear the same comment and shrug it off, while it sticks to your skin like a thorn. Because their wound isn't where yours is. Now, this doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. The Stoics taught us that peace doesn't come from avoiding life's challenges. It comes from mastering our inner response to them. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," and modern neuroscience backs this up. Our brains literally fire the same emotional patterns again and again, unless we interrupt them. So ask yourself, what story does your mind always go back to? What wound still shapes your reactions? So, who's holding the remote to your emotional world right now? Because here's the powerful realization. You don't have to keep running that loop. You don't have to stay stuck in a reaction from 20 years ago. You can choose to pause, to breathe, to question the story before you believe it. That is the beginning of freedom. Not freedom from triggers, they'll always come, but freedom from being ruled by them. It starts with awareness, with catching the loop as it begins, instead of cleaning up the damage after it ends. And that, my friend, is how you start to escape the hidden prison. Not by tearing down walls, but by outgrowing them, by choosing presence over programming, by responding with wisdom instead of reacting from wounds. Because when you can stay grounded while the world tries to pull you into chaos, you've already won. Part 2. The Path to Self-Mastery. Let's get one thing clear. Having emotional reactions doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're broken or flawed or doomed to stay stuck. It just means you haven't trained yet. That's it. We live in a world that teaches algebra in school, but never teaches us how to handle heartbreak. We learn how to write essays, but not how to sit with anger without letting it control us. So let me remind you, no one is born emotionally regulated. Not you, not me, not Marcus Aurelius. It's not a gift, it's a discipline. It's a muscle that grows, moment by moment, choice by choice. You don't have self-mastery. You build it, and it doesn't happen in grand moments. It happens in the quiet ones. When someone says something disrespectful, and you pause instead of snapping back. When your body surges with frustration, but you sit with it, breathe through it, and choose your response. That's the real training ground. It's not on a mountaintop. It's not in a meditation retreat. It's in traffic, in your inbox, in the awkward silence after a tough conversation. Every time you choose not to react from impulse, you're rewiring something deep. Every pause is a neural upgrade. Every deep breath is a vote for who you're becoming. That, my friend, is self-mastery in action. Now let's talk about pain, because here's where most people get it wrong. Pain shows up, and the immediate instinct is to react, to lash out, to escape, to distract, to blame. But pain is not your enemy. In fact, pain can be your greatest teacher if you stop running from it. The Stoics had a radical idea. Don't resist the discomfort. Study it. Because pain doesn't come from the present moment. It comes from what the moment reminds you of. That frustration when someone interrupts you. It's not just about now. It might be about years of feeling ignored. That anxiety when someone doesn't reply. It's not just this message. It could be about abandonment, rejection, or being made to feel invisible long ago. See, your body remembers. It holds the emotional imprints of your past. But you don't have to keep reacting from them. You can learn to witness them. This is what Stoic wisdom calls directed awareness. Not suppression, not pretending you don't feel anything, not shoving emotions under the rug and calling it strength. No. True emotional discipline means sitting with what you feel without letting it hijack your behavior. You let the fire burn without letting it burn you down. And yes, that takes effort. Yes, it takes practice, but so does anything worthwhile. You didn't learn how to walk in a day. You didn't build your career in a week. You won't master your emotions overnight either. But every time you choose stillness over snapping, every time you choose observation over overreaction, you take a step closer to the strongest version of yourself. Not the loudest, not the toughest, the most anchored. So when life throws chaos at you, and it will, you meet it from a place of calm, from a place that isn't shaken by every storm, because the foundation is built within. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about that. You have the power, right now, not to change the world, but to change how you meet it. This is what emotional intelligence really is. Not knowing how to avoid feeling, but knowing how to handle your feelings with wisdom. You become the master of your response. Not because you're numb, but because you're aware. That's what makes someone untouchable. Not that nothing gets to them, but that they choose how to respond to what does. So what does the path look like? It looks like silence before speech, stillness before action, awareness before assumption. It looks like recognizing that every trigger is a mirror, reflecting something inside you that's ready to be seen, healed, and released. And above all, it looks like owning your peace. Because emotional reactivity, that's easy. Anyone can get angry. Anyone can slam a door. But to pause in the heat of the moment, to stand still when your whole nervous system wants to explode, that is rare. That is powerful. That is mastery. And it's available to you starting now. Part 3. The power of interpretation. Let's make something crystal clear. Events don't hurt you. What hurts is the meaning you assign to them. That's right. It's not the delay, not the silence, not the words themselves. It's what your mind makes them mean, and that is where your true power lives. Let's say a friend doesn't reply to your message. The moment stretches into hours, maybe a whole day. Your mind starts talking. They're ignoring me. They don't care anymore. What did I do wrong? Before you know it, your chest is tight, your thoughts are racing, and you're caught in a storm of anxiety, all because of something that didn't even happen yet. The truth. They might just be busy. They might be dealing with something personal. They might have seen it, planned to respond, then got distracted like we all do sometimes. But your interpretation made it personal. That's how fast the mind works. It creates meaning, often without permission. And that meaning becomes the trigger, not the event itself. This is why Epictetus said over 2,000 years ago, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by their view of things." Let that sink in. It's not the situation, it's the story. So here's the million-dollar question. What story are you telling yourself about your life, about others, and about yourself? Because here's the liberating truth. You can't always control what happens. You can't stop people from being late. You can't make someone love you back. You can't force life to unfold exactly how you planned. But you can control what it means. And that's a superpower. It's called reframing, and it's one of the greatest tools of emotional intelligence. Let's break it down. Someone interrupts you mid-sentence. Your mind says, "They don't respect me." But what if you pause and ask, is that really true? Or are they just excited to share their thought? Or, your partner seems distant. Your mind says, they've lost interest. But what if you paused and asked, are they pulling away? Or are they overwhelmed by something they haven't shared yet? Reframing is not about sugarcoating. It's not about denying reality. It's about replacing judgment with curiosity. Because judgment assumes, curiosity investigates. And in that space, you reclaim control. You stop being programmable. You stop letting old wounds decide today's emotions. You become responsible, able to choose your response rather than be run by reaction. Let's be honest. Most of us don't live in the moment. We live in the interpretation of the moment. Someone says something, and we're not hearing their words. We're hearing our own insecurities echo through them. They're not saying, "We're not enough." But we've already told ourselves that story, so we filter the world through it. And that's the trap. The moment you believe every thought your mind creates, you become a prisoner of your past pain. But when you learn to pause, to question, to reframe, that's when the shift begins. You move from emotional autopilot to conscious awareness, from victim of the narrative to author of it. And you begin to notice, it's not that people are always disrespecting you. It's that you've attached your worth to their opinion. It's not that silence always means rejection. It's that your mind fears abandonment because of an old wound. Awareness breaks the spell. That's why reframing is so powerful. Because it puts you back in the driver's seat. Imagine this. Every trigger becomes a training ground. Every tough moment becomes a chance to rewrite the narrative. Every pause becomes a portal to power. You don't just survive situations, you grow through them. That's the Stoic way. Not to escape life, but to master the way you meet it. So next time you feel the sting of a comment, a delay, a look, pause, and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Is there another possible interpretation that brings me peace instead of pain? What would this moment look like if I viewed it through curiosity instead of fear? That small shift in perspective can change your entire emotional landscape. Because meaning is not something you find, it's something you assign. And when you start choosing meanings that empower you rather than break you down, you become unshakable. Part 4. The root of the trigger, the past. Let me ask you something personal. Why do some moments hit harder than they should? A delayed reply, a certain tone of voice, a small critique in a meeting. Logically, they're no big deal, but emotionally, they feel like a punch to the gut. Why? Because you're not reacting to the moment. You're reacting to what the moment touches inside of you. That's the root of the trigger. It's not the words. It's what they echo. You see, most of us carry emotional fingerprints from the past. Deep impressions left by wounds we never fully understood, processed, or healed. Abandonment, criticism, betrayal, neglect. Maybe it was a parent who wasn't emotionally present. Maybe it was that first heartbreak. Maybe it was years of feeling unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. These aren't just stories from childhood. They're emotional blueprints. And they show up, especially when we're under pressure. Someone ignores you. It's not just this person. It's every time you were left out. Someone raises their voice. It's not just them. It's every memory of being made to feel small. Someone questions your worth. Suddenly, your body remembers what your mind tried to forget. That's the thing about triggers. They aren't events. They're mirrors, and they reflect the parts of us that still hurt. That's why Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius urged himself daily to look inward. He knew that external events was simply the spark, and the real fire was within. Modern science agrees. Neuroscience shows us that emotional memory doesn't just live in the brain. It's stored in the body, in your breath, in the tightness of your chest, in the clenching of your jaw, in the sudden drop of your stomach. You may think you've moved on, but your nervous system remembers. So when a trigger shows up, it's not just annoying, it's an invitation to pause, to breathe, to ask, where have I felt this before? Because healing doesn't start with answers, It starts with awareness. And that awareness begins with a simple but powerful question. What is this moment trying to teach me? Not, how do I stop feeling this way? Not, how do I get them to change? But, what old wound is being touched right now? And am I willing to face it? This is the work most people avoid. It's easier to blame. It's easier to scroll. It's easier to react, lash out, or shut down. But the Stoic path, the path of mastery, it demands that you turn inward, even when it's uncomfortable. Because when you begin to understand the source of your trigger, it starts to lose its power. You realize that you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're responding from an unresolved place. And that place doesn't need punishment. It needs presence. Let me share something personal. There was a time when silence from someone I cared about would drive me into a spiral. I'd check my phone obsessively, replay conversations, convince myself I did something wrong. But one day, instead of reacting, I sat with the discomfort. I breathed. I waited, and I asked the question, what does this remind me of? Suddenly, I saw it. It wasn't about them. It was about a childhood filled with emotional distance, feeling like I had to earn love, feeling invisible when I didn't perform emotionally. That realization didn't make the pain disappear overnight, but it gave it context. It gave it meaning. And in that meaning, I found healing. This is the power of Stoic reflection, to stop blaming the world for every emotional storm and start learning how to weather them with wisdom. Because every trigger is an opportunity to understand yourself, to build resilience, to rise above reaction and enter reflection. To quote the Stoics, "He who angers you conquers you." Elizabeth Kenny, not a Stoic, but a truth the Stoics would have applauded. The moment you recognize that your trigger is yours and not theirs, you take your power back. You stop expecting the world to handle you gently, and you start learning how to handle yourself powerfully. So the next time something stirs you, don't immediately react. Pause. Breathe. Feel. And ask, where is this coming from? Because the answers you seek are not in the chaos around you. They're in the quiet within you. That's where the past lives. That's where healing begins. And that's where peace becomes possible. Part 5. Stoic Emotional Intelligence. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood ideas of all time. Stoicism is not about becoming numb. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's not about pretending you don't care or walking around like a cold, detached statue. No. True Stoicism is about discernment, about feeling deeply while choosing wisely. It's about being fully aware of what's happening inside of you. Anger, fear, sadness, frustration, and still having the strength to decide, I won't let this emotion choose for me. That's emotional intelligence. It's not denial. It's direction. You don't shut the door on your feelings. You open it. You greet them. And then you decide which ones deserve a seat at your table. Because reacting to every emotion is not authenticity. It's immaturity. A lot of people say, I'm just being real when they explode or lash out. But being real doesn't mean being reckless. Stoicism teaches us that power is not in how loudly you express your feelings, but in how skillfully you guide them. Aristotle said it perfectly over 2,000 years ago. To be angry with the right person, in the right way, at the right time, for the right reason, that is not easy. And he's right, because anger isn't the problem. Sadness isn't the problem. Frustration, disappointment, fear, they're all natural, all human. The problem is, when we let those emotions drive the car. That's what the Stoics warned us about. They didn't say, don't feel. They said, don't be ruled. Imagine this. Your emotions are like fire. They can cook your food or burn your house down. They're powerful. But they need guidance. So how do you train this emotional muscle? Just like physical strength, through resistance. Each time you breathe before you snap, observe before you speak, walk away instead of escalating, you grow stronger. Every time you choose not to be reactive, you're lifting the emotional equivalent of a heavy weight. You're building endurance. And the more you do it, the more control you have, not over others, but over yourself. And that's the kind of control the world can never take from you. But let's be honest, it's not easy. It's easier to yell. It's easier to prove a point. It's easier to type that angry text or send that passive-aggressive email. But easy doesn't build strength. Easy builds weakness disguised as expression. What builds character is the pause. What builds strength is choosing your response, even when your emotions are screaming for control. Let's look at an example. You're in traffic. Someone cuts you off. Your body floods with anger. Your mind wants revenge, but a Stoic breathes. They feel the spike of adrenaline, but they don't chase the car. Why? Because peace is more valuable than ego. Or this. A coworker questions your idea in front of others. Your pride is bruised. Your instinct says, defend. Attack. Show dominance. But a Stoic, they pause. They assess. They ask, what matters more, being right in this moment or preserving my energy for a better one? That is emotional maturity. That is Stoic emotional intelligence. It's the quiet power of knowing you could react, but you don't. Because not every battle is worth your peace. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every feeling needs a performance. So how do you get there? Start small. Next time you feel triggered, do one thing. Pause. Ask, is this really worth my peace? Am I reacting from clarity or from habit? What would the strongest version of me do right now? The answers will surprise you. And over time, that pause will become your superpower. People will wonder how you stay so calm, how you keep your cool in chaos, how you maintain clarity when everyone else is unraveling. And you'll know the truth. It's not because you don't feel. It's because you trained yourself to feel, without being consumed. That is Stoic strength. Not armor to keep the world out, but awareness to keep you steady within it. So don't suppress your emotions. Study them, challenge them, train them. Let them inform you, but never control you, because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who have mastered their inner world. Part 6. The Sacred Pause. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment and wished you could take it back just seconds later? That text, that sharp comment, that impulsive decision. We've all been there. It's like a switch flips. 1 second you're fine. The next you're drowning in emotion, reacting before your rational mind even wakes up. But here's the truth the world rarely talks about. Reactivity feels instant, but it's not. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. A split-second pause. A sacred window. And inside that window lives your greatest power. The power to choose. Now, modern life doesn't like that pause. It rewards speed, not stillness. Respond fast. React now, move quick, text back. Speak up, swipe left, post the comeback. But the Stoics, they lived by a different rhythm. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and master of self-restraint, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That power, to revoke, to reconsider, to pause, is what separates the impulsive from the wise. It's what separates noise from presence, reaction from response, and chaos from calm. Let's be clear. Pausing is not weakness. It's not freezing. It's not giving up. It's mastery in motion. It's saying, "Yes, I feel the fire rising, but I will not burn the house down just to feel momentarily powerful." Because anyone can react. But to pause in the face of pressure, to choose silence over snapping, to hold your center when the world pushes every emotional button, that's rare. That's sacred. That's stoic. So what happens in the pause? 3 powerful things. 1. You question the story. Your mind wants to make sense of the moment fast. Why did they say that? Are they attacking me? Am I not good enough? But the pause gives you time to ask a better question. Is this true or just familiar? Is this about now, or am I reliving an old wound? The more you pause, the more you realize. It's not the event that hurts. It's the meaning you attach to it. 2. You regulate the emotion. Your nervous system might still fire off. That's okay. But in the pause, you take a breath. You let your body catch up to the moment, and suddenly, instead of being swept away by the current, you plant your feet in the river. You don't deny the feeling. You hold space for it. And in that stillness, the intensity often fades. 3. You choose clarity over chaos. From the pause, you ask, what would the strongest, wisest version of me do right now? And that version rarely chooses chaos. It chooses clarity. It chooses peace. It chooses direction, not destruction. Let's put this in real-world terms. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You want to scream. Instead, you pause and let it go. Someone sends a cold message. Your pride flares. You pause and choose not to interpret it as rejection. A loved one says something that stings. Your defenses rise. You pause and ask yourself, do they mean harm, or are they just hurting too? That pause, that's not silence. That's not avoidance. That's dominance. It's the art of owning yourself in a world that profits from your emotional chaos. It's what makes a person truly powerful. Because when you no longer react to everything, people can't control you, events can't shake you, triggers can't program you. You become grounded, unmoved, free. And guess what? This doesn't require years of training. It starts with one breath. Right now. You don't need to retreat to a monastery. You just need to remember the pause in the moments that matter. Because every time you claim that pause, you reclaim your life. You stop being a puppet. You start being a master. And slowly, but surely, you build a life led not by fear, not by reaction, but by wisdom. So the next time you feel the heat rising, the pressure building, the emotion tightening your chest, don't fight it. Don't flee from it. Just pause, just breathe, just observe. Because in that sacred space, you become who you were always meant to be. Part 7. Boundaries, Energy Protection. Let me tell you something you may need to hear today. You don't owe everyone access to your energy, not your time. Not your explanations. Not your emotional availability. In a world that constantly pulls at your attention, drains your energy, and demands your reaction, there is one practice that will radically change your peace. Boundaries. And no, boundaries are not walls. They're filters. They don't push people away. They protect what matters within. Because the truth is, if you don't protect your peace, the world will consume it. We've all felt it. You walk away from a conversation feeling depleted. You keep engaging in arguments that go nowhere. You keep saying yes when your soul is screaming no. And slowly, you lose something precious. Your clarity, your energy, your identity. That's what happens when we live without psychological boundaries. But the Stoics, they were masters at protecting their minds and their emotional reserves. They understood that peace is not just about what you cultivate inside. It's about what you allow in from the outside. So here's a powerful truth. You are not obligated to argue with fools. You're not weak for walking away from drama. You're not cold for declining an invitation to chaos. You're not selfish for preserving your energy when others expect you to entertain their emotional storms. That's not avoidance, that's wisdom. A Stoic boundary sounds like this. I don't argue with fools. I don't absorb energy that isn't mine. I can stay kind without being available to everyone. Let's make it practical. Someone tries to bait you into a pointless debate online. You feel the urge to defend yourself. Instead, you pause and you log off. Why? Because your peace is more valuable than proving a point. A friend guilt trips you into something you don't want to do. Instead of explaining, defending, or over-justifying, you simply say, "That doesn't work for me," and that's it. Full stop. You don't owe your presence where your peace cannot exist. But let's be honest, setting boundaries feels hard, especially if you've been conditioned to please, to be the peacemaker, to keep everyone comfortable at your own expense. And that's why this part of your journey is so important. Because peace without protection is vulnerability. You can meditate, journal, and do all the inner work in the world. But if you still let toxic energy walk through your front door, unchallenged, your peace will never last. That's where boundaries come in. Not as aggression, but as self-respect. Not as defense, but as direction. And here's the Stoic way to do it. 1. Say no without guilt. You don't have to feel bad for choosing yourself. You don't have to apologize for protecting your energy. Every time you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what builds you. 2. Step back calmly, not defensively. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly. Silence can be a complete sentence. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is disengage with grace. Let them wonder. Let them project. Your peace is not up for debate. 3. Observe before absorbing. Someone's chaos doesn't have to become your chaos. Their anger isn't your fault. Their mood isn't your responsibility. Before you absorb someone's energy, ask, is this mine to carry? If the answer is no, let it pass through you like wind through an open window. Because here's the thing, just because someone throws energy at you doesn't mean you have to catch it. And that's the difference between peace and exhaustion. You become untouchable, not because you avoid people, but because you refuse to be emotionally manipulated by them. And this doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care strategically. You give your time and energy where it matters most, not where it's most demanded. That's what it means to be anchored in your own center. You are no longer emotionally reactive. You're emotionally intentional. That's the Stoic way. And in a noisy, emotionally charged world, that's rare, that's powerful, that's free. So the next time someone pushes your boundaries, guilts your no, or questions your distance, just remember, you don't owe them a reaction. You don't owe them an explanation. You owe yourself peace. And that is enough. Part 8. Detachment without guilt. Let's talk about something we all need, but most of us were never taught. How to let go without guilt. Because if you're like most people, you've been conditioned to believe that caring means clinging, that attachment is proof of love, that walking away means you're cold or selfish. But here's the truth you won't hear often enough. Peace begins where emotional overinvestment ends. Most of us are leaking energy, and we don't even realize it. Not because we're weak, but because we've tied our inner peace to things we can't control. We drain ourselves chasing approval. We replay conversations, trying to decode meaning. We overthink, overextend, and overexplain, hoping someone else will validate our worth. Sound familiar? You lie awake at night, wondering if they're mad. You send the double text, then regret it. You keep showing up for people who never meet you halfway, and by the end of it all, you're not just tired, you're disconnected from yourself. So here's a shift that will change everything. Detachment is not apathy. It's not giving up. It's not shutting down. It's simply saying, this matters, but not more than my peace. That's it. It's choosing to observe, but not absorb, to care, but not carry, to feel, but not be consumed. Because not everything deserves a response. Not every emotion needs a performance. Not every battle is yours to fight. And here's what the Stoics knew. You don't become free by controlling the world. You become free by releasing your grip on it. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And detachment, that sacred, centered form of letting go, is your path to that freedom. So what does this look like in real life? It means you stop begging for closure that may never come. You stop waiting for someone to finally understand your heart. You stop clinging to relationships that leave you questioning your worth. You let go, not because it doesn't matter, but because your peace matters more. And that kind of clarity, it's powerful. It says, I can love you and still walk away. I can care, but not chase. I can feel disappointment, but not drown in it. This isn't cold, it's courageous. Because holding on to things that hurt you is easy. Letting go with love, that takes strength. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Where am I gripping too tightly? Where are you forcing something to make sense? Where are you chasing someone who isn't choosing you? Where are you investing energy into outcomes you can't control? Because the more you grip, the more you suffer. The tighter you hold, the harder it is to breathe. But when you finally release, that's when the peace floods in. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop fighting reality. You stop confusing effort with alignment. You stop sacrificing your well-being to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trading your energy for crumbs of validation, and the moment you do, you start to remember who you were before you started chasing. You start to hear your own voice again. You start coming back home, to yourself. That's the quiet magic of healthy detachment. It's not dramatic. It's not angry. It's not loud. It's a soft internal shift that says, I'm not abandoning you. I'm just choosing me. So let go of the need to prove. Let go of the need to explain. Let go of the outcome you've been clinging to so tightly, because what's meant for your peace will never require you to suffer endlessly for it. Letting go doesn't mean loss. Sometimes it's the beginning of liberation, and every ounce of energy you stop leaking becomes fuel for the life you actually want to live. So choose peace. Choose presence, choose freedom, and never apologize for protecting your spirit. Part 9. Strategic Silence. Let me start with a truth the modern world rarely tells you. Silence is power. Not silence from suppression, not silence from fear, but silence as a conscious, strategic choice. A Stoic choice. We live in a world that expects noise. React, post, comment. Clap back. Defend your name. It's a culture of constant reaction, and the moment you don't engage, the world gets confused. But here's what the Stoics knew long before social media, group chats, and 24/7 commentary. Silence is rebellion. When the world shouts, your silence is a refusal to be pulled into chaos. When others demand a reaction, your quiet is a declaration. My peace is not on the market. Now let's be clear. Strategic silence isn't about bottling up your feelings. It's not about swallowing pain or pretending nothing touches you. It's about choosing your response instead of being programmed by the moment. It's the decision to ask, is this worth my energy? Is this conversation even necessary? Do I need to win this, or can I walk away with my peace intact? Because not every comment deserves a comeback. Not every insult needs an audience. Not every emotional poke is worth your energy. Sometimes silence is louder than 1,000 words. Let me show you what strategic silence really looks like in the real world. Gossip? Don't respond. Someone starts talking about others behind their backs. Instead of joining in or correcting them, you simply go quiet. Why? Because your character doesn't need to echo their chaos. Insults? No reply. Someone throws shade. Tries to provoke you. But you hold your posture, keep your eyes steady and say nothing. That's silence. That's not weakness. It's dominance without drama, ghosted. Shift your focus. They disappear. No explanation. No closure. You don't chase. You don't beg. You redirect your attention to where you're seen, valued, and respected. Unjust criticism? You stay composed. Hold eye contact, nod once, and keep walking. You don't flinch. You don't fire back. Because when you know who you are, you don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. That's the essence of Stoic silence. It's not about withholding. It's about holding space for your higher self. It's about stepping away from noise. Not because you're scared, but because you've outgrown the need to explain yourself to every passerby. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to turn things upside down or make trouble." Think about that. You are allowed to say nothing. You are allowed to not engage. You are allowed to walk away quietly. That's not passive. That's powerful, because silence is the space where clarity lives. When you stop talking, you start hearing what really matters. When you stop reacting, you start noticing what actually deserves your attention. And here's the twist. People fear silence. Why? Because they can't manipulate it. They can argue with your words. They can twist your tone. They can dissect your response. But your silence, they have to sit with themselves in it. And often, that's the most unsettling thing of all. So if you've ever felt guilty for staying quiet, don't. You're not being cold. You're not being distant, you're being intentional. There is wisdom in not interrupting someone who is exposing themselves. There is peace in letting people talk while you quietly observe. There is strength in saving your energy for things that actually matter. So next time you're pulled into conflict, chaos, or criticism, pause. Ask yourself, is this moment calling for my reaction or my restraint? Am I trying to be heard by someone who doesn't even listen? Is this noise, or is this necessary? And if the answer is silence, stand in it proudly, because strategic silence is a language of its own, and those who speak it fluently, they don't just survive storms, they command the calm within them. So what does it really mean to become untouchable? It doesn't mean nothing ever bothers you. It doesn't mean you never feel pain, frustration, or doubt. And it definitely doesn't mean you walk around emotionless. No, being untouchable means this. You no longer hand over your peace so easily. You don't react to every insult. You don't chase every approval. You don't explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You pause. You breathe. You choose. Because mastery is not about being unaffected by life. It's about deciding what gets to affect you. Let that sink in. It's not that the world becomes softer. It's that you become sharper. You train your mind to recognize when someone's drama is just that, their drama. You build the strength to walk away from chaos without needing to prove anything. You learn to protect your peace like it's your most sacred currency. Because it is. And this journey, it's not about becoming better than anyone else. It's about becoming better at being you, anchored, calm, aware. Let's recap what you've built throughout this process. Boundaries. They're not walls to push people away. They're filters that keep your energy clean. You no longer feel guilty for saying no. You know that peace without protection is a fragile peace, and you protect yours wisely. Detachment, it's not coldness, it's clarity. You care, you feel, you love, but you don't cling. You've learned that letting go doesn't mean losing. It often means returning to yourself. Silence. It's not weakness, it's precision. You don't react just because you're provoked. You don't engage just because you're invited to drama. Your silence isn't a retreat, it's a declaration. My energy is too sacred for this noise. And reactivity, it's no longer your default. You've replaced it with awareness. You observe, you reflect. You respond from wisdom, not wounds, because that's where your freedom lives, not in controlling what happens, but in mastering how you meet it. This is the Stoic path, not easy, not glamorous, but solid, unshakable, quietly powerful. It's the power to walk through chaos and remain calm, to be insulted and still remain kind, to be overlooked and still know your worth. So now I'll ask you, who gets access to your peace? What actually deserves your reaction? Where can you pause, detach, or stay silent and still feel whole? Because you're not here to be controlled by everything around you. You're here to own what's within you. That calm presence, that clear mind, that steady heart, that's who you are when you stop leaking energy. That's who you are when you stop chasing and start standing still. That's who you are when you stop trying to be understood and start being unshakably yourself. Untouchable doesn't mean nothing touches you. It means nothing owns you. And that is freedom. There's a quiet power in the moment you realize, I no longer react like I used to, because I'm no longer who I used to be. That shift, that's not just growth, that's transformation. Because when you look back, you'll remember the days when every insult got under your skin, when silence made you spiral, when someone else's mood could ruin your whole day. But now, you've unplugged the control panel. Those old buttons, they don't work anymore. Because you've done something most people never do. You reclaimed your mind. You stopped being reactive. You started becoming reflective. And in that reflection, you found something rare. Inner authority. It's not that you don't feel anymore. You do. It's just that you no longer hand over your emotional state like it's public property. You breathe. You pause. You decide. You've built a new kind of strength, quiet, deep, invisible to the eye, but unshakable in practice. Your peace, it's not passive. It's protected. Your silence, it's not weakness. It's wisdom. You don't speak to prove. You don't engage to please. You don't react just because you're triggered, because now you know better. You've seen what it costs to live on emotional autopilot. You've paid the price for people-pleasing, over-explaining, and carrying what was never yours to begin with. So now, you protect what matters. Your time, your energy, your mental clarity, your self-respect. And here's the most beautiful part. This isn't the end. It's not a final chapter. It's not the last step. It's the beginning of true self-leadership, a life where your emotional state isn't dictated by circumstance, but shaped by your awareness, a life where you're no longer chasing approval because you approve of yourself. A life where you don't need closure from others because you close your own chapters with peace. So if you've made it this far, you didn't just watch a video, you made a decision. A decision to stop being ruled by noise, to stop letting others narrate your worth, to take back your power, not with fists, but with presence. From here on out, your power doesn't come from being louder. It comes from being grounded. You don't need to be seen to know you're valuable. You don't need to be agreed with to know you're right. You don't need to be praised to know you're growing, because now you lead yourself from the inside out. If this journey lit something inside you, don't let it fade. Hit that like button to honor how far you've come. Subscribe if you're ready to keep building this stoic strength. One breath, one boundary, one moment of silence at a time. And tell me in the comments, what does self-leadership mean to you right now? Let's walk this path together.